Hi everyone, it's Dr. Karina Barley here. So I'm just going to be adding information in particular about the RFK Jr.'s so-called autism response or autism plan. Um, his comments so far have been ableist at best and discriminatory at worst, and demonstrates a complete lack of understanding of autism issues, autistic people, and generally their abilities or non-abilities, or non-abilities, that's the wrong word. So, um, what they're capable of or what they're not capable of. And it's really important to understand that autism is a very wide spectrum. And are there some who have more challenges than others? Absolutely. But that doesn't have anything to do with vaccines. It doesn't have anything to do with um, environmental factors. It doesn't have anything to do with toxins in the body. It just doesn't. We understand clearly that there are genetic factors and that autism is a neurological condition. In other words, it's in the brain. It's the way that the brain is developed. Does that mean that there can't be causal factors, such as maybe medications, um, what happened in utero, the birth process, food that's being, the kind of food and diet that a child might be receiving, and so on? Yes, all of those are causal factors. So they're additional factors. But the major factor in autism is it's in its neurology. So it's stemmed in how we're actually born. Addressing why we know that now and why it seems like we've tipped the scale and into, that there are more and more children who are being born with autism, just means that we have a better understanding of what the spectrum is. And we understand it's a spectrum because it has lots of different variations. And in fact, many are now calling it a constellation rather than a spectrum, because there are areas of deficit, and there are areas where there might be extreme, but high ability. So, and no child is the same. There is that saying that if you know one child with autism, you know one child with autism. That in other words means it's a very unique individual condition that is different in every single person. So just one to suggest that it's a disease is completely incorrect. It cannot be transmitted. Diseases are transmitted. Autism cannot be transmitted. Oh, well, actually, that's not completely correct, because it technically can be through genetics. So describing autism as a disease is inaccurate and contributes to the harmful stigmas. Instead, autism needs to be understood, and it needs to, we need to have awareness of how we can support our individuals who are autistic. This idea of putting children or people on a registry is unethical. It breaches privacy, and it goes against HIPAA. You cannot take information from people's medical history and just add them to a registry. What is that registry going to do? They've not even indicated what the registry would be used for, other than some kind of elusive idea about there being it being used for research. Am I against research? Of course not. Research is really important, but it needs to be done ethically. The very first rule of research is to do no harm. And it's also to ensure that you have ethics and consent. Without ethics and consent, the research is invalid. You cannot do research without gaining people's permission. You certainly can't pluck them out of nowhere and pop them on a register and then um, try to get some details from that register without that consent. There might be a small percentage that might be willing to give consent, but only if it would be appropriate. Again, I'm not against research. I think that's really important. But what's equally important is that we don't violate privacy and consent. We don't breach confidentiality. We don't take control out of the individuals. We don't stigmatize and discriminate. This idea that autistic people have no worth in the community, that they're a burden, that they're costing the taxpayer money, that they have nothing to contribute to society, that they'll never work, never, earn taxes, etc., is just diabolically wrong and incorrect. So there's an incredible potential for misuse. It's also pathologizing neurodiversity, suggests that autism is something to be monitored and contained, reinforcing the outdated and harmful view that autism is a problem to be fixed. There's flawed justifications. We don't believe that any kind of registry would support any planning or research for the future of autistic people. It doesn't address their real needs. It also takes away the respect for neurodiversity and understanding that we are all unique and individual people. And so any data collection involving autistic people must center their voices, involve them in the design, and must be fully voluntary. Better alternative than a register is to fund inclusive supportive services. But of course, we can't do that in America right now because inclusion is a bad word. We can't improve, let's improve public education about autism. But that's impossible when you've got the head of a department, suggesting that autism is some kind of thing that is debilitating, for all people, that it ruins lives. It's just a shocking, shocking terminology, shocking and debilitating. And the only thing that is a barrier for autistic people is this kind of thinking. We need to train professionals in neurodiversity affirming practices, and we need to promote co-designed research that respects autistic agency. So that's a little start. I'm sure many of you may have questions. I've been researching autism for over 10 years, and what I know for certain is speaking like this and proposing a registry like this is only going to take autism backwards. And we must have everybody who is involved in any kind of autism advocacy, autistic people themselves, that we reject this idea wholeheartedly. Again, and ask, though, for appropriate research that's done by professional people who are qualified to undertake this research, not unqualified conspiracy theorists.